Right. So, first question, obviously, a lot of people don't know about the place itself. Tell me about where it's located, how big is it, the population, etc.
Yeah, so obviously the Isle of Man's like a little island that's based in the United Kingdom, and it's a little tiny island which is in between England and Ireland. And there's only 82,000 people that actually live on the Isle of Man, so it's obviously dead small. Distance wise, you can get a car journey from the top to the bottom, and it'll take you about 40 minutes. So it's like really small. So everybody knows everyone. You can get around easily. So it's just a dead small little island in the United Kingdom.
And has it always been the part of, I don't know, England or Ireland? What kind of status does it have right now?
Well, it's its own it's a crown dependency, so it's its own country. So we have our own government and all that. We're not governed by like England or anything like that. I think if it did come down to
Yeah, exactly.
England wanted us to do something, we probably would have to do it. But yeah, we're governed by ourselves, so we are our own country.
Right, right. And so I'm sure it hasn't always been the case. So tell me a bit about the history of the Isle of Man.
Yeah, it's always just been like people from the Isle of Man are known as Manx people. So it's always just been full of Manx people, and obviously people have come from all over the world to live here. Like I'd say it's predominantly like filled with Manx people still, but slowly starting to become people from like different nations and different parts of the world are starting to come over, which I always think is mad because I always think how do people from all these like places around the world actually know about the Isle of Man because it's not very well documented. I'd say most people probably know about the Isle of Man from something called the TT, which is like a world famous motorbike race that goes on here. And I'd say that's probably the Isle of Man's biggest thing it has going on where people would know and recognize the Isle of Man from.
I did some research about the Isle of Man. So the first thing that came up was this motorcycle race, which is insane. Talk to me about this actually a little bit.
Well, it's a 2 week sort of period where they have like something called a practice week where obviously all the riders come over and they like ride the course. But the course is basically situated on all the main roads of the Isle of Man. So when the race is going on, all the roads are closed. And this is like going past people's houses and all. Like at like 200 miles an hour at times on these motorbikes, whizzing past people's houses. So life sort of really stops on the Isle of Man. So you'll have like a 1 week practice where the roads will close from like 5 o'clock till 9 o'clock at night. So everyone's rushing home from work to try get home before the road's closed. Otherwise, if you're situated on the course, you can be blocked out of your house. And then obviously there's a race week where the racing like continues literally from first thing in the morning until about 5 o'clock at night. And most people have it off work. I've got it off work. So you literally just have a week's holiday where everyone comes and watches the bikes, and there's loads of stuff going on the island because usually the island's not got that much to do. But when it comes to TT, the weather's usually good. Get about 40,000 people come over to watch the TT. So the population literally goes 1.5 times. So it's so busy. There's loads to do, and it's probably one of the best periods there is on the Isle of Man throughout the year. Everyone's excited for it in the calendar coming to the TT period. So yeah, it's a really good sort of event for the Isle of Man.
Wow, that sounds good. Sounds good. What period is it usually around?
The last week of May and the first week of June. It's around that time.
Okay, okay, okay. And how does that work? Anybody can just, I'm sure it's, you have to be a good racer, but how does that work? How does the selection work?
Yeah, this thing's called qualifying. So obviously people will qualify through. I'm not entirely sure how it works, but I think you've got to ride in obviously like little different motorbike races, and then you can qualify to necessarily ride in the TT. There's also a thing called the Manx Grand Prix, which is sort of similar, and I think a lot of the people qualify for the TT through riding in that Manx Grand Prix, and then you obviously can gain newcomer status, and then you sort of go into it that through that sort of way.
Okay, okay, okay. And why the Isle of Man to do this race? What's very unique about the Isle of Man? Is there a lot of mountain, a lot of countryside races?
Well, that's the thing. There's not. That's the only sort of apart from the Manx Grand Prix and the Southern 100. That's the only sort of big motorbike race there is. And obviously, because it's a dead small island, there is a lot. It's mainly in the countryside, and there's one of the famous roads is the Mountain Road, and that's a big section of the TT where it's basically like a big road through the mountain. And when the TT is not going on, it's actually like an unrestricted speed zone, so you can go as fast along that as you want. So that's like one of the major parts of the Isle of Man.
Yeah, that's incredible, actually. So, do people actually drive really fast, or are they just used to just being free? in a way.
Yeah, some people drive silly speeds across the mountain when the racing isn't going on. There is a lot of accidents on there, to be honest, because obviously there's no speed restriction. So you get some people who think they're in the TT trying to whiz their car around it and all.
Are you one of those or not?
I'm sensible, Maxi. You know me.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, let's talk a bit more about people, the culture in the Isle of Man. So I'm sure, obviously, you speak English, but do you speak a different dialect?
We do have our own language, which is called Manx, but it's sort of a dead language. No one really speaks it over here. I think there's one school that only speaks Manx at it, but day to day life, I don't think I've ever spoke Manx to anyone from the Isle of Man in my life. So it's not sort of a language we use, but it is there if you want to learn it, and some people obviously do so. But yeah, it's not like a commonly used language over here. We mainly speak English.
Okay, okay, okay. Do you think it's a bad thing in a way that we just forget about the language, or people don't really care?
Yeah, it's one of the people don't really care about it, to be honest, because it's not used. There's not like there's not a big emphasis on learning it. When you're in primary school, as we call it over here, which is when you're like ages 4 to 11, sometimes you do lessons on learning it, but then as soon as you go to like high school, they don't teach it anymore. So there's never really a big emphasis on learning it. So like the locals we don't really care about learning the language.